Um, I might need to quote from. Hold on. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna respond to this situation here. See here. There's a something that compelled me to do this video. Um, I think it's called Asian Africa culture goes to Europe. I think that's what it is. Black celebration, Black celebration in Africa. Uh, Before we embark on our barge into African civilization, I think that it would be interesting to the readers and the students of African history to know how the continent of Africa received its name. First of all, in ancient periods, the Black Hebrews referred to Egypt, the garden of the eastern gates of Africa, as the land of Ham. The Hebrew ethologists use the eponymous name Ham because they were conscious of the fact that many of Ham's descendants traveled from Asia toward the south and inhabited the continent we know of today as Africa. It seemed that there were no Semites of Indo-Europeans in the land of Ham before the enslavement of the Hebrews and Hyksos envisioned ancient Palestinian was part of the land of Ham. Okay, before the Hebrews came and expelled the Hamites, Canaanites, it appeared that the early anthropologists and ethologics, ethologics classified race on the basis of cultural development and not on the basis of kinship. But the Hebrews are an exception. The early Greeks distinguished between the Hellenists and barbarians because they weighted their own people to appear superior. Some of them claim that they originated everything. The Romans felt culturally superior to the northern barbarian tribes, and they enslaved many of these barbarians. The Egyptians subjugated and sold other Africans. The Egyptians subjugated and sold other Africans, tribes that were inferior to them in culture, and they conceive of themselves as racially and culturally superior to other undeveloped people. Okay, realizing that our people went through other lands, right? And so our people start when they mix with the other nations and other things of that nature, our people start developing over time. Their skin got lighter. You see what I'm saying? And that's really what a lot of this is going into. The Greek scholars took interest in the black people 600 years after the founding of Nor Northcraft Norcris. Oh, I don't even know what that is. A Greek colony on the Nile Delta about 1 BC. The Greek historians Strabo and Diodorus classified the European race, black race, in interior of Africa. The Greeks received slaves from the upper and Nile and west of the Nile adjacent to the European kingdom. Herbert Wins quotes Ashtor, who says that the pilgrims came from the upper Nile, which Ethiopia in much of Greece literature in referring to the Africans and the Greeks used the word Ethiopian. Moreover, the maps of Africa during the Middle Age con- shows this content as Ethiopian, knowing that the greater part of Africa was called Ethiopia. The greater part of Africa, the greatest part of Africa was called Ethiopia. The professor of Zula and anthropology, anthropro, anthropro, pro, proology, Jonathan F. Blintenbar classified the race space into five categories: the Caucasian Mongolians and American Indians, Malin, Malians, and Ethiopians, Malians and Ethiopians. And notice the father of modern anthropology does not use the term Negro, but Ethiopian. But the modern name of this content is Africa. It is divided from the descendants of Abraham and Keturah. These descendants in Ophir and Japhet. The black Jewish historians Flavos Josephus wrote the following: Ophir, the grandson of Abraham, through Keturah led a military expedient against Libya and captured it. When his grandchildren colonized that place, they call it from his name Africa. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, I had to reread that again. But the modern name of this content is Africa. It is derived from the descendants of Abraham, Keturah. These descendants of Ophir of Alpha and Japhet. I get Japhan. The black Jewish historians Flavos Josephus wrote the following: Ophir, the grandson of Abraham, though through Keturah, led a military expedient against Libya. Libya is all those people of Ethiopia, and captured it. When his grandchildren colonized that place, they call it from his name Africa. So it was named after Keturah led a military expedient against Libya and captured it. When his grandchildren colonized that place, they call it from his name Africa. Okay, so we see, okay, in the Latin language, the word for Africa is Afro, which is similar to Ophir or Ophir. The the F in the word for the P feel ph Ophir and interchangeable in many languages. In North Africa, the Romans, talking about the so-called European, won a military vice viceroy the period of the Third Punic War. O, okay, uh, Understandably. Oh, I don't know what that is. My bad on that one. But the Romans borrowed the word Afro from the ancient Libyans. They borrowed the Romans borrowed the word Afro from the ancient Libyans, who called their country Afra. The Afra. That's where that word Africa come from. Those was white people's name. The content of Africa is a gigantic mass of land. Its its land surface is almost 4 times larger than the United States. How and where did Africa receive its black population? Did it come from the south, the east, the north, the west, across the mighty oceans, or did this population originated in the interior of the continent through a gradual process of evolution? Harvard Winds and Basel Davidson says that it presumably came from Mesopotamia, Babylonian. The historian, the history of the ancient Black Jews, indicating that the early patriarch of the the African people, migrated from Babylon. The Babylonian patriarch of the African people migrated from Babylonian, but there is a prerogatively amongst many scholars to bypass Jewish sources because of prejudice and to look elsewhere for the solution in the methodologics of the ancient March MUCH much for the solution in the methodologies of the nations. Much truth has become lost in the worship of many gods and in the definition of many kings. Can we put any creeds in Jewish records that record the ethology and magistrates of the ancestors of the Africans? I think so, because Abraham came from this discrete of the discrete. No, I don't think I said that right. But anyway, it says discrete Babel. No, excuse me, Babylon, which was the cradle of civilization. Abraham had the oral tradition transmitted from the north, transmitted from Noah, Shem, Abraham rendered obese to the one true God. Therefore, his descendants were able to transmit a long, uncorrupted region, history, culture, and language. No other nation in the ancient Near East can boast or claim as much, even as great as Egypt was. Her ancient religion and languages are now extant. The Hamites began to arrive in Africa from the Middle East between 500 and 35 BC. These Hamites were, according to the Hebrews, Mizraim, Egypt, Pop, Samland, and Westwood, and Cush, Ethiopia. The Hamites, Canaanites, and the Phoenicians did not colonize North Africa until the 9th century BC, when they established the city of Carthage at Tunis. That's a hard word. Even though I can say that word, Tunis, I gotta. You know what? It's a lot of these words I got to look up. Tunis. The Egyptians and their descendants are Ludim, and Antum, and Lehabim, and Napanim, and Peshluhim, and Keshlum, and Philistim, and the Captorim of Napanim settled in Nile, Data, and Patrams is the city of Patros in the Upper Egypt. Anam, Cushlam also settled in various sections of Egypt, but the Lehabium and Ludim occupied the territory west of Egypt, now called Libya, on the westward Khartoum, and occupied the islands of the of the Crete in the Mediterranean Sea, and Palestine, Pas, Pasluim eventually inhabited the lower coast of Palestine. When the Israelites under Joshua, Ben, and Nathan Newton invaded the land of Canaan, many of the Hamites, Canaanite tribes, migrated to North Africa. This is when the other nation they ruled Israel, Africa. They ruled they came and they occupied them spaces, which would be the modern day Palestinians. Some of the words it's a couple of them that was kind of hard, but hopefully you'll be able to understand where I'm coming from. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get up out of here, and hold on. Let me look at one more. I don't think I'm gonna keep it out too long, but I think I did more reading here. Hopefully this reading didn't sound horrible. The origin of the white race. This is a good one too. That's the one I really wanted to read here. It says the origin of the white race. Let me read this. The origin of the white race. After the destruction of mankind by the flood, Noah and his wife and his 3 sons and their wives were the only people that were saved. The sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. From these tribes, from these 3 sons of Noah was the whole earth populated. The ark rested on Mount Ararat. Mount Ararat was located in the land of Armenian. The words Armenian and Ararat means high ground. The entire earth at this time was one speech and of one language. Most of the people dwelled in the plain of Shinar, in Hebrew, the valley of Shinar. Men began to congregate in the territory and to build a tower up to heaven. The Jewish historian Flavos Josephus says, God also commanded them to send columns abroad for the thought, for through pre-pelling of the earth. But the people did not obey God. Now, when man was in the process of building the tower of God and disapproved of its construction because it showed a disbelief in his word, the divine had promised Noah that he would not destroy the earth by water again. Nimrod, the Ethiopian, was the leader of the conspiracy against God, and he was a mighty man and a conqueror. See, we have to understand that the Ethiopians, they was against God too. These people are the enemies of God. These people hate our people even to this day because they don't identify. They never identified with us. He held the people under his dictatorship. When God considered what he had been doing, he confused man's languages and scattered them toward the 4 directions of the earth. The sons of Noah were Shem, Ham, and Japheth, because the world was populated from these 3 sons of Noah. It is proper to classify men only according to this classification. The Shemites, the Hamites, and the Japhites. The Japhites would be the so-called white men, y'all. And the Caucasones, and Mongoloid, or Negroid. The latter category is a modern anthropologia classified that we will deal with with more thoroughly later. The parts of the earth inhabited by the children of Shem was part of the territory of Assyria and Elam and Pisa, Pisa, P-E-R, Persian. I mean the Elam in Persian, east of the Tigris River, the eastern part of Syria, parts of Arabia Peninsula. All the people of Shem were black. This position will be supported by arguments and facts later. The second classification of mankind was the Hamites, who controlled the great centers of civilization in ancient times. 400 BC, soon after the flood, this civilization included the continent of Africa, the land of Canaan, Israel, parts of Arabia, Syria, Phoenician, Turkey, Babylonian, southern Persia, Iran, East Pakistan, and a large part of India. The third classification of mankind was the Japhites. From Japhite, who was the younger son of Noah, the offspring of Japheth occupied the islands of the Gentiles. Yeah. So I'm gonna take time. I just love reading that, and I like going over that type of stuff. This type of stuff, you know. African age of culture goes to Europe. I'm gonna come back and read that. And I was reading from Babylon Chapter 2, man. And I just love sharing this with people, bro. And I love reading. I love learning, man. I didn't get a chance to read all what I wanted to read, but this is something that our people don't tell other people. They just occupy their mind in other things. And people don't take time to pick up their history, read nothing. They just go by what a man tell them, and then they ain't doing nothing but ripping them off and then scamming them. They don't care nothing about their soul. They don't care nothing about their history. They don't care whether they're close to God or not. They just trying to they all about an almighty God. Yep. So I'm gonna get up out of here and I'm gonna see y'all later, and we're gonna come back and let's talk a little bit.